Okay, I think it's time to get started. So welcome to our October Customer Success webinar, where we're going to be focusing on why you should be running your live polling in PowerPoint. Now, I'm Dermot from the Customer Success team, and to keep an eye on some questions coming in on the board is our MD, Peter Eyre. Say hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete.
Morning, all. Lovely. Okay, so if you haven't done so already, I'd like you to get hooked up to the Meetoo meeting for our session. So either download the Meetoo app from the iOS or Android app stores, or on any browser, on any device, go to web.meetoo.com. And then our meeting ID for today's session is 146709082. That's 146709082. Now, I can see we've got quite a few people connected up to our GoToWebinar today, and I'd like to make sure that we have the same number of people connected to our Meetoo session, because as I said a moment ago, we're going to be doing some live polling ourselves, as well as looking for you to submit any questions and indeed any comments or tips that you might have into your session. So please do get connected there. It's less of an agenda and more just a reminder of the three areas that we're going to look at today. First, going to look at why you should run your polls in PowerPoint, then look at how to get the most of those PowerPoint polls, and then finally a few tips from us here at Meetoo. So we're going to crack on with a poll straight away, which means I'm going to remind you again that we need to get everybody connected to Meetoo. So go to web.meetoo.com on your browser, and the ID is 146709082. Now, I've already got the poll open, and what I'm actually looking for here is your experience of using live polling in PowerPoint. So have you used it as a participant, responding to polls? Have you used it as a host or organizer, presenter or lecturer? Have you used it as both a participant and as a host, or is it none of the above? So I'll just give you a couple more seconds to let those votes trickle in. But of course, I don't want to hang around too long, so I'm going to close it off there. Now you can see that we've got our instructions down the bottom of the slide, so please just make sure you get on there as soon as you can. Okay, well, I wasn't quite expecting that many people here to have used it as both. We mainly have people who are the organisers or presenters on here, so it's great that you've also managed to participate in those sessions as well. And a few of you, none of the above, so really great to see some new people here. Hopefully today's session is going to be useful, and then after this session you go away and sign up for a Meetoo account and potentially move yourself into the other categories up above. Okay, so thanks for those responses now. Okay, why use PowerPoint for live polling? Well, it's quite simple, really. There are literally millions of presentations that happen every day, and millions of them using PowerPoint. So the chances are that your session is going to be using some slides as well. Now, PowerPoint slides can be made to look really slick and professional. So I think it makes sense that your live polls have the same look and feel, because they're just as important as your content slides, and sometimes potentially even more important, because they're soon going to be containing all that valuable data that's been captured from your participants. And if I look at it really simplicity, there are two types of sessions really that might use PowerPoint for live polling. We've got a high production meetings, such as conferences and events, and then there's more low-tech sessions like your smaller everyday meetings, training sessions, or lectures. Now, PowerPoint brings very different benefits to these type of sessions, so I'm going to just step through a couple of those things. So for our low-tech sessions first, PowerPoint's a really familiar platform for many of those people that are going to be running these type of sessions. So actually adding the polling into PowerPoint is potentially less daunting than having an additional bit of software or another dashboard to look at to actually run those polls during what's quite often quite a stressful moment while you're standing there in front of your audience. Your polls are seamlessly distributed throughout the presentation, so there's no clunky changing of displays, or that is really often a pain for people that are wanting to use a live polling solution, as they're just worried about how they're going to show their normal slides and their polling slides. There's no need to carry an extra phone or iPad or another control device. You simply step through your slides just as normal. You don't even necessarily need to be next to the mouse or the keyboard or both, because all your polls are going to be simply open and closed just like any other PowerPoint animation, particularly with the Meetoo add-in. And then I've put shareable here. You're able to actually share your slides and all your poll results just in one hit. Because all of those poll charts, those result charts are going to be saved on your slides again, just like normal PowerPoint content. So really quick and easy to get all that content out after your meeting. And then finally, with little or no effort really, you can really make those polling slides look pro, even in these low-tech sessions, because all your poll slides are normal PowerPoint slides, and they're going to pull the slide master, the layout, the fonts, and all the colors just as you create them. So really easy to do that. Then moving on to our higher production environments. Now, the main benefit here is probably production value for those high-profile conferences and events where your PowerPoint slides and all the graphics have been professionally crafted. You're then able to actually give your poll slides all that same time and effort to make them look like they belong on what's probably a giant screen and in front of a lot of people. It also gives you the flexibility to cater for different presenters with different slide templates. Your polling slides are, they are just PowerPoint slides, as I've mentioned before, so don't forget all that same flexibility applies there. You can be really creative, whilst maintaining that fully on-brand feel, so you can go to town on the design and make them look really professional. Now, I've put future-proofing here because actually the progression of PowerPoint really means that you're able to create bigger and better polling slides, as more and more features become available. When we started using PowerPoint for polling first, Pete, I think we were using PowerPoint 2000, weren't we? Which seemed amazing at the time, but actually when you look back, the graphical and animation features that were there were really quite limited. And then, as we moved to each version after that, 2003 and then onwards, we were able to get really creative with the polling slides we were able to do with those graphics and with those animations. So who knows where PowerPoint's going to go? I saw recently that they've started introducing some 3D elements. So we're going to have to take some time to see how we can potentially incorporate some of that into our polling slides. And of course, as always, we'll share them with you guys. So now to look at how. So choosing the type of poll for your questions is often easy, as the nature of your question will often dictate what you need to use. However, where the decision is not so cut and dry, it's important to make sure that you really have the desired output in mind before you commit to a particular poll type. So I'm going to pick out a couple of the poll types that we have in our Meetoo PowerPoint add-in, and just have a little look at how you might use each of them. And we've actually produced quite a considerable amount of content around the subject. So afterwards, feel free to get in contact with us or visit the website if you want to download any of our guides or helpful resources there. So the first one we'll look at is your multi-choice, your classic question type. Whether that's a single response type or multiple response questions. These are probably the most popular type of polling slides, as it gives you as the person creating it, the ability to give as much or as little choice to those respondents as you need. But there is an art to formulating a question, so you really need to think about what you're trying to get out of those respondents before you come up with all your options. You can end up limiting people to what they might want to respond. So people often will throw an other in at the end of their options, but be careful with that, as trust me, there's nothing worse than having the majority of responses actually say other, because then you obviously need to then explore that afterwards. So really think about what people might want to say or what data you're actually trying to capture. And then another thing to think about is whether you're going to show it as percentages or real numbers, or perhaps a combination of the two. Different questions and potentially even different participant types. You might want to display those in different ways to make sure, one, you're capturing the right data, but also that you're able to respond to it and talk about it. Never ask a poll, see the results and go, that's interesting, and then carry on. You really want to talk about those results to make it worthwhile. Moving on to word clouds. Now, I think a few years ago we thought that these word clouds would be a bit of a fad, particularly in the meeting environment, but they're very quickly becoming one of our most frequently utilised poll types. They're really great for getting a feel of what people think about a particular subject, and simply, easily, and you're able to comment on them quite quickly and get a good idea there. You do need to remember though that word clouds are a visualization of word frequency. So you need to encourage people to enter just one word or potentially a series of words, but that are independent of each other. Word clouds break up all context, and indeed even our Meetoo word cloud generator in PowerPoint will remove words such as and, if, at, on, things like that, to make sure you get a true sense of what people are actually putting in there. It's also worth mentioning we've built in a profanity filter, just to make sure that you don't get any unsavory words displayed during your presentation. Again, really useful if you're not in that high profile, high production value environment and you're just running it yourself. You don't necessarily have time to screen those responses coming in. So you just want to trust that what's going to be displayed on there is going to be suitable. But word clouds really are. They're a great way to display that content live that previously would have had to be reported on, analysed, interpreted, and then put back to people after a session. You can do it in a moment. Then looking at the rating poll types. Now these probably don't need much explaining. We use them in our everyday life, whether it's rating a call we've just had on Skype, rating a shopping experience, or or a host of other situations that we bump into on a daily basis. But I really think that they're underutilized in a presentation situation, as people often go for the multi-choice question, as I mentioned at the beginning, and just simply put in a series of scaled responses in there. But actually, by using, in this instance, a star rating question, your respondents can answer much quicker, because they don't actually have to interpret the options, read them out, get down to the bottom. They know exactly what they're doing. It means you can save a lot of time, particularly if you're doing a feedback or evaluation type session. You're able to really rattle through those questions and capture that really golden feedback. You'll get a far higher response rate doing those evaluation questions in a live environment than you may do if you're doing a paper survey or something like that afterwards. Then moving on to analysis slides. For those of you that have used the Meetoo add-in, you'll have seen these in there. There are three types of analysis slides. We've got the recall, we've got totals, and we've got comparisons. Now recall slides, just like the other two, do exactly what they say. You've got the ability to re-show results from an earlier poll, or indeed if you decided to actually hide those results earlier, you're able to actually recall them and look at them afterwards. An example of this might be where you want to capture the opinion of people before they're potentially swayed by a discussion or a presentation, and then actually reveal what they thought before it happened. Moving on to totals, a great way to combine all the responses if you're asking the same question across an individual session or indeed across multiple sessions. They're often used for temperature checks, and then you can combine at the end and get an aggregate result for how people were feeling throughout your session. Then looking at comparisons, and these are the ones that people always get quite excited about, but basically it's a before and after comparison poll. And in fact, you can actually compare up to 6 versions of that same poll using the PowerPoint add-in comparison slides. Great for measuring a shift in opinion or understanding levels across a session, a series of sessions, or indeed an entire semester, if that's what you want to do. Then I talked a little bit about being creative earlier. Again, remember, you're using PowerPoint, so you can be just as creative as you can with your normal slides, because actually all the elements of your polling objects are just normal PowerPoint objects. So you can break them apart and really make some nice customized polling slides. So here's just a couple of examples of ones that we've put together where you can do XY matrix. So it could be risk versus impact, strategy and risk. Again, what we've done here is we've just broken apart our normal choice question and actually fit it into that matrix. You can do maps for demographic questions or other questions where the responses might be mappable. Again, this is very simply done, and we've got some tutorials on how to do that on our YouTube channel and on our website. It's actually a lot simpler than it looks. You can go completely graphical. And just looking at it now, I've just realized this might be a little bit more difficult to see because in fact we've got some pictures instead of normal options, and we're just overlaying up percentages on top of that. Again, as many options as you want, particularly if you've got a question that has a lot of options, and this is a great way to actually display that, because if you just had it in a normal list, you'd probably run out of space on your PowerPoint slide. So actually by making it into a grid and using some of these techniques, you can make it look a lot more sensible. And as I mentioned before, you know, who knows where PowerPoint's going to go. As I said, we've got 3D graphics that have just arrived, and you know, there seems to be more and more Office updates all the time. So, you know, we're really excited to see what we're going to be able to do over the next few releases. And then moving on to our final section, which is our tips section. And we've got a few tips for you here today. My first one, and this is probably my first tip when talking about polling in any environment, but particularly around PowerPoint, is have some instructions. Put your joining instructions on a big slide as people are walking into your session. You've generally got a holding slide up or an introduction slide. Put your joining instructions on there to make sure everybody actually gets joined up to your technology, and then they're able to respond to those polls. I would always put it on every slide. So you'll see in this session, I've had it in the corner of pretty much every slide, our joining instructions. But if you can't do it on every slide, make sure you do it at least on the slides that have got polls on them, or if you're asking people to do anything else in PowerPoint as well. The next one is, make it familiar. So we talked about instructions, but then do an introduction, do a proper introduction, do an icebreaker, do a warm-up question. Anything that gets both the presenter or the host familiar with using it, but also your participants, to make sure that they're actually able to use it and know what they're doing as well. Experiment with it. Go really crazy. We showed you a couple of examples of some of the more creative slides that you can create for your polls. Just go crazy like you would on a normal content slide. Dull looking slides have a real negative effect on those that are watching your presentation. So on the flip side of that, your vibrant slides will make people pay attention. Your poll slide should be no different. Make them look really cool. And when I say do that, it's really simple to go through it. But if you break it, we've got a reset button on the Meetoo PowerPoint add-in. So if you try to get creative and you think you've broken it, just hit reset and you can start again. Countdown clocks. Now, I didn't have one on my my first poll during this session, but if you have got a lot of polls throughout your presentation, it might be worth putting a countdown clock on there to make sure that you're keeping to time. Quite often what will happen is you open a poll and people won't have any urgency to respond to you. By putting a countdown clock in there, it'll make everybody start to press the buttons straight away. A little tip on countdown clocks in particular, we've got two options. You can set the countdown clock to actually close the poll when it completes the time. I prefer to still close it myself. So there's the option to let the countdown clock finish, and then you can still close the poll manually. This allows you to just give it an extra second so those people that were waiting until the end, make sure all their votes come in. Obviously, every piece of data is really valuable there. And my last tip here is about ad hoc poll slides. Now, it's a good idea. You can prepare some generic poll templates. So a yes, no, don't know, strongly agree to strongly disagree type questions. Have them at the end of your PowerPoint deck, perhaps even hidden. And then if anything really interesting comes up in a discussion or during a session and you want to take a snap poll, you can simply jump to those slides, run those polls, capture all that really valuable data, and then go back and carry on with the rest of your presentation. And a way to do that seamlessly is just to type in the slide number and hit enter. So on a bit of paper, write down the slide numbers that you've got those poll templates sitting on. So hopefully really easy to do. That was my last tip, and I'm conscious of time. We say we usually like to get through these in 20 minutes. So I'd like to move into a bit of a Q&A section. If anybody's got any questions, hopefully Pete's seen a couple coming in, or at least some comments.
Yep, absolutely. So, Dermot, a couple of questions and comments for you. Sure. First of all, on the grid poll, a comment. I like the grid image poll, never considered using polling like that. So that's great. And then the next question is the grid poll now available, or is it after the new release? So that's the Star Wars grid you showed.
The Star Wars grid. So it's not actually a poll type in itself. What we did there is we created a normal choice question with a list of options. And then we basically broke apart that slide. We removed the bars and we actually removed the labels for each option, moved them off the slide, and then just overlaid the percentages, the result labels that were associated with each option, and just overlaid them over some pictures on the slide. So not very difficult to do, and we've got a YouTube video actually that we can send the link out afterwards to see how that tutorial works. Does that answer that question?
It does. It does. If we share that link within this Meetoo Q&A board afterwards, you can go directly to it.
Yep,
so we'll
absolutely. Yeah. So keep an eye on the meeting. Yeah.
Another one that's got a comment and a question is, I didn't realise you could run word clouds in the PowerPoint add-in. Awesome, which is great. I think that is something that was added in the last release this summer.
The last PowerPoint release was at the end of June. And yes, so we added the word cloud poll type as well as the star rating question poll type.
Okay, and that leads on to a question, which is it easy to share polling slides with other users and edit word cloud polls for other users? So I guess two questions there.
Yeah, so if I take the first bit straight away in terms of sharing it, yes, absolutely. So this is just a normal PowerPoint presentation. So as you would share your slides of anybody that wanted to run a similar session or the same session, if your polling slides are in there, they will just connect up the PowerPoint add-in to their Meetoo meeting, and then they can run the slides that you've created very easily.
Okay.
And then the second part.
Oh, sorry. The second part, yeah.
What was the second part?
The second part was, can you edit word clouds before you share them?
Not in the PowerPoint add-in, no. So the PowerPoint add-in will show whatever comes in, which is again why I said we've built in that profanity filter and the other filter to remove the smaller joining words to make sure it's there. Okay. If you're worried, you can choose to not share the result live. So in the same way as we discussed, you might not want to show the results of a normal poll live. You can hold back that word cloud, check it out yourself, and then reveal it a bit later if you're concerned.
Great stuff. Okay, this one might put you on the spot a little bit. Someone's asked, can they see another live poll run? They'd like to see, maybe they didn't see the vote at the start, so see the UI on their device. Do you have a live poll? We can jump to, or even program one in the PowerPoint add-in in front of our very eyes? We can do that. What type of question should we ask, Pete? You have to help me here. Maybe, are you trick or treating tonight? Okay, so let's do it the interesting way here. So we're going to create a new poll here. It's Halloween. I hope I haven't got any typos in here. Okay, so there we are. We've got our title in the title box, our options just on a new line in our normal text box. I'm going to convert this to poll. Again, I get to choose my poll type. If I want to set a correct answer, I can do that as well. I'm only going to give you one selection here. I click add, and I'm not going to spend too much time actually formatting this one, Pete, but we're now in slideshow mode, and if I open that poll, hopefully we can find out if people are going to this. Wasn't prepared for a demo there, Pete. Right, excellent. Okay, so we've got living proof it's easy. That's good. No, majority of people. Okay, not decided yes. We still might get a few people out knocking on the doors there. Excellent. Okay, hopefully that answers that question. In terms of other questions, does everyone that uses Meetoo run it through PowerPoint? No, not at all actually. I think the last time I checked, it was around 50% of people were using the PowerPoint add-in for their sessions. A lot of people, they may not have slides, or they just like to run the polls separately. The web dashboard allows you to run it on another computer or on an iPad or another tablet device. You can launch your polls and, as Pete's doing, look through the Q&A. So no. I generally do. I think when I run my sessions, I generally use the PowerPoint add-in. Okay. Right. So we've just got two more, and then any other questions that come in, we'll answer them on the Q&A board. But just two more is: can you capture participant data, contact details? You can ask people to submit anything you like. So you could ask open text type questions to get people to put in email addresses or anything like that if you like. So yeah, and I guess that's certainly a possibility. Or you can ask demographic data via choice questions. So whether it has any kind of profiling question really you can do. You could also, we're running anonymously, but you could put profiles on and ask people to put in a first and last name as well, if you wanted to identify people that way. Okay, so final question, and then we'll wrap it up. So I know you've given us your tips there, but what would be your number one tip that you would give people running polls in PowerPoint for the first time? And I've got one too. We'll see if we've got the same one.
Okay, I'd probably go down the route of the instructions. I know it seems a simplistic one, but the worst thing you can do is kind of just quickly show perhaps some joining instructions at the beginning and then move into your presentation. Quite often people that are participating in a meeting, they may not be concentrating at the very beginning. They may not think that they need to participate. They may not think that they want to, or they don't understand the benefits to them of either responding to polls or participating in the Q&A. So actually, by having an introduction, having those instruction slides and really conveying the benefits to your participants of why they should be participating, I think is the best tip I can give.
That's good. What do you think? I wrote down two. That was one of them.
Good.
My other one would be, actually, it's just a basic tip on PowerPoint, which is rehearse it. Everything you do, there's nothing worse than a brilliant presentation where your animation's coming in the wrong order, or you've got a hidden slide that you've forgotten about, or so on and so forth. And it's exactly the same with polling. It's very easy. It's just another animation in your PowerPoint presentation, but rehearse it. Rehearse it so you're comfortable with how it's going to work. Rehearse it so you know it's in the right place in the presentation, and make sure you've cleared out the data. So you're going to a fresh slide with no bars in there already. So it's just preparation. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it makes all the difference when you put all that hard work into your presentation. Okay,
Correct.
I think that's it for questions. Any more that have popped in or that do pop in, we will answer on the board. And
okay. Oh, I've got my poll there before my other slide. After a little ad hoc session there, we've got a feedback survey that's available in Meetoo. Please go to that. Give us a feedback on the session. It's really the only way that we can improve these sessions is to get your honest feedback. There's only a couple of questions in there. It'll only take you a couple of seconds to complete. I think that's all. So thanks very much for attending. If you've got any further questions, as Pete says, please put them into the Meetoo board and we will look to answer them. We're going to post out the link to the picture polling or that grid style question. There's a tutorial we've got on our YouTube channel. But as always, email hello@meetoo.com and we will get back to you right away. Thanks very much and have a happy Halloween and enjoy those people that are going trick-or-treating. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.